Imagine being born into a world where every single day is a fight for survival. No electricity. No medicine. No clean water. No mercy, just disease, disaster, and death, on repeat. Now, think about this. If even one of your ancestors had tripped on a rock, starved during a famine, or caught the wrong plague, you wouldn't be here. You're not just alive, you're a statistical miracle, because history didn't make survival easy, it made it nearly impossible. In this video, we're diving deep into the 10 absolute worst times in human history to be born. From freezing ice ages to apocalyptic diseases and brutal empires, these were the moments where being human was basically a death sentence. So before the next catastrophe hits, backhand index pointing right, make sure you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss more dark, wild, and mind-blowing history like this. Now, let's step into the past, and be thankful we weren't born there. Chapter 1, The Ice Age, a cold, cruel start. Tone, cinematic, immersive, harsh realism. The year is approximately 20,000 BCE. Earth is locked in the grip of the last glacial maximum, the coldest point in the last ice age. Imagine waking up each morning in a frozen tundra, your breath visible, your hands numb, and your only shelter a hut made of mammoth bones and animal hides. The wind cuts through your skin like knives, and food? It's not waiting in a pantry. It's running, snarling, and weighs 6 tons. Your ancestors had to hunt woolly mammoths, fight off saber-toothed predators, and battle hypothermia on a daily basis. Tools were primitive: stone axes, bone spears, fire made by friction. No antibiotics. No medicine. If you cut your hand while sharpening a spear, that minor wound could kill you in days. The average human life expectancy? Maybe 20 to 30 years, and that's if you were lucky. You slept on the ground, shared space with half a dozen other people, and prayed the cave lions wouldn't visit at night. And yet, even in this frozen hell, humans adapted. They painted inside caves. They developed early language. They invented tools that helped them survive the cold. But make no mistake, if you had been born during this time, survival would have been a full-time job. A single mistake, falling into icy water, getting scratched by an animal, eating the wrong root, could end your story forever. Chapter 2, The Toba Super volcano, humanity on the brink of extinction. Tone, tense, mysterious, scientifically grounded. Now, picture this, it's around 74,000 years ago, and you're living somewhere in what's now Indonesia or South Asia. Life is already hard, you're a hunter-gatherer, moving constantly in search of food, avoiding predators, and fighting for survival with just stone tools and fire. But then, something cataclysmic happens. A supervolcano, Mount Toba in present-day Sumatra, erupts violently, the largest volcanic eruption in the last 2 million years. Scientists estimate it was 100 times more powerful than the biggest nuclear bomb ever detonated. The sky goes black. Ash blankets the air. The sun disappears. Temperatures plummet worldwide. It's what scientists call a volcanic winter, a sudden global cooling event. Crops fail. Plants die. Animals vanish. And for humans, it's apocalyptic. According to the Toba catastrophe theory, this eruption may have wiped out over 90% of the human population. Genetic studies suggest that our entire species was reduced to just a few thousand breeding individuals, maybe as few as 1,000. That's like the population of a small high school, for all of humanity. If you had been born at this time, your world would have been reduced to cold, starvation, and ash. Breathing would have felt like choking. Hunting would have become almost impossible. And every day, your tribe would have shrunk, one death at a time. You'd be part of the smallest bottleneck in human history, a point where one bad generation could have erased the entire species. It's terrifying to imagine that the only reason you're alive today is because someone managed to survive that darkness. Someone endured the freezing nights, the poisoned air, the starvation, and the grief, just to carry the human story forward. If Toba had been just a little more explosive, this video, your phone, even your DNA, none of it would exist. Chapter 3, The Dawn of Agriculture, A Great Leap. Into misery. Tone, surprising, eye-opening, critical of popular myths. We often think of farming as humanity's big breakthrough. A step forward. Civilization begins. Cities rise. Food is abundant. Sounds great, right? Not so fast. Around 10,000 years ago, in the Fertile Crescent, a region we now call Iraq, Syria, and Turkey, humans started transitioning from hunting and gathering to farming wheat, barley, and lentils. This shift, known as the Neolithic Revolution, changed everything. But not all change is good. If you were born during this time, your life probably got worse, not better. As a hunter-gatherer, you ate a varied diet: nuts, fruits, fish, wild meat. You moved seasonally, had more leisure time, and fewer diseases. But now, as a farmer, you're eating grains all day, every day, nutritionally poor and hard on the teeth. You're working longer hours in the same spot, bending over crops, dealing with pests, soil problems, and unreliable rainfall. Your body, it's breaking down faster. Archaeological skeletons show that early farmers were shorter, weaker, and more disease-ridden than their nomadic ancestors. And here's the kicker: you're now living in permanent settlements, close to animals and other people, perfect conditions for the rise of infectious diseases. Tuberculosis, smallpox, the flu, these began here. Your child dies of diarrhea. Your spouse from an infected cut. Your neighbor from a respiratory illness. And there's more. Farming led to property, which meant social inequality. Suddenly, some people had land. Others didn't. Elites formed. Kings rose. And slavery was born. So if you were born into this agricultural revolution, you'd likely work harder, eat worse, get sicker, and die earlier, all while watching the first seeds of war, greed, and empire begin to grow. The idea that farming was humanity's golden moment? That's a modern myth. For the people who lived it, it was often. Chapter 4, The Bronze Age Collapse, When Civilization Fell Apart. Tone, cinematic, apocalyptic, filled with historical suspense. Imagine being born around 1200 BCE, during the height of the ancient Bronze Age. The world is buzzing with trade, culture, and innovation. Massive empires like Egypt, the Hittites, and the Mycenaeans rule powerful cities filled with scribes, temples, ships, and soldiers. There are palaces in Greece, grain flowing from Egypt, and trade routes linking Mesopotamia to the Mediterranean. It looks like a golden age. But suddenly, it all disappears. In just a few decades, nearly every major Bronze Age civilization collapses. Cities are abandoned. Languages vanish. Writing systems disappear. And nobody knows exactly why. Was it climate change? Massive droughts? Volcanic activity? Plagues? Or maybe the mysterious sea peoples who came from nowhere, burning cities to the ground? Whatever the cause, if you were born during this time, your life would descend into chaos. You'd likely live in a city that suddenly stops getting grain shipments. Crops fail. Famine spreads. Trade dries up. The elite class that once protected you? Gone. The soldiers who enforced order? Dead or deserting. Food becomes scarce. People riot. Fires burn through palaces. Refugees flood the roads. You hear stories of once great cities like Ugarit being reduced to rubble in a single night. Egypt survives, barely, but never recovers its former glory. And this collapse wasn't just one empire falling. It was an entire interconnected world unraveling. Scholars today call it the first true Dark Age, a 300-year period where literacy, technology, and stability vanish across the ancient Near East. If you had been born just a generation earlier, you might have grown up in a palace. But if your birth came just a few decades later, you'd grow up in ruins, scavenging in forests, fearing raiders, and not knowing what civilization even meant. The Bronze Age collapse is a brutal. Chapter 5, The Black Death, Death on Every Street. Tone, grim, emotional, chilling. It's the year 1347. You're a child in Europe, maybe in Italy, France, or England. You've heard rumors, a sickness is coming, from the east, from ships, from rats, from the devil, nobody really knows. And then, it hits. The Black Death, also known as the bubonic plague, sweeps across Europe with unimaginable force. Within just a few years, over 200 million people die across Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. In Europe alone, it wipes out half the population. Entire towns vanish. Fields go untended. Streets are full of carts carrying the dead. If you were born in this moment, you were born into a waking nightmare. One day, your mother gets a fever. The next day, boils the size of eggs appear on her neck. Her skin turns black. She starts coughing blood. And within 48 hours, she's dead. Then it's your brother. Then your neighbor. Then, you. There's no cure. No explanation. People believe it's God's punishment, or that Jews, witches, or strangers are to blame. Panic turns into violence. Mobs form. People flee cities and abandon their families. And here's the most terrifying part, even the healthy are dying from fear. Doctors wear bird-like plague masks stuffed with herbs, but they don't help. Churches overflow with bodies. Graves are too full. In some cities, people pile the dead in the street and burn them by the hundreds. If you survive, and that's a big if, your world is changed forever. Everyone you loved might be gone. The economy has collapsed. Laws are meaningless. Faith is shattered. And your childhood was never really a childhood at all. For many historians, this was the worst pandemic in human history. To be born into the Black Death wasn't just unlucky. It was a front-row seat to the end of the world, a slow, painful apocalypse where life meant little, and death was always one breath away. Chapter 6, The Atlantic Slave Trade, Born into Chains. Imagine being born in West Africa in the 1600s or 1700s. You're just a child, maybe 8, maybe 12. One day, your village is quiet, and then it's not. Strangers arrive. Some are armed raiders, others are local rulers working with European traders. Fires break out. Screams rise. And within hours, you're captured, chained, and marched hundreds of miles to the coast. There, at a fortress like Elmina Castle or Cape Coast, you're crammed into a dark dungeon with hundreds of others, no toilets, no clean air, barely any light. You're held for weeks. You watch people die of starvation, sickness, or madness. And then comes the worst part, the middle passage. You're forced into the belly of a slave ship, chained below deck with no room to move, lying in your own waste, surrounded by moaning, dying souls. The air is thick with death. Some throw themselves overboard. Some are thrown alive. Historians estimate that up to 20% died before even reaching land. But if you survive, it gets worse. You arrive in the Americas or the Caribbean, Brazil, Jamaica, South Carolina, Virginia. You're sold like livestock at an auction. Your name is erased. Your family. Gone. Your past. Doesn't matter. You now belong to someone else, for life. Every day, you wake before sunrise. You work 12 to 16 hours in the heat, picking cotton, sugarcane, or tobacco. You're whipped for resting. Punished for resisting. Families are torn apart again and again. If you're a woman, you may face sexual abuse by your owner. And there's no end in sight. Generations are born into this horror. Children grow up never knowing freedom. For centuries, slavery wasn't just accepted, it was built into the law, the economy, and even religion. If you were born into this system, you weren't seen as a human. You were property. And even if you lived, it wasn't really a life. The Atlantic slave trade wasn't just a tragedy. Chapter 7, Colonial Genocide, the erasure of entire peoples. Imagine being born into a tribal community in North America, Australia, or Africa during the height of European colonial expansion, the 17th to 19th centuries. You're part of a people who've lived on the land for thousands of years. You know the seasons, the rivers, the spirits of your ancestors. You have stories, languages, songs passed down for generations. But now, strangers arrive. They wear armor. They carry steel. They speak a language you don't understand. And they come with one belief: this land is not yours. It's theirs. What happens next isn't just war. It's extermination. Your people are called savages. Your way of life is uncivilized. At first, they offer trade, then treaties, then betrayals. Soldiers come. Missionaries arrive. Settlers bring diseases your body has never seen. Smallpox, measles, influenza, they spread faster than bullets. Entire villages vanish in weeks. In North America alone, over 90% of the indigenous population was wiped out by disease, war, and starvation. In places like Tasmania, an entire indigenous group was hunted to extinction. In the Congo, under Belgian rule, millions died due to forced labor, starvation, and mutilation. Some were killed for resisting. Others, just for existing. But the violence didn't stop at death. It went deeper, to erasure. Children were stolen and placed in boarding schools, where speaking their native language was punished. Heads were shaved. Names were changed. Beatings were common. The goal? Kill the Indian, save the man. You were made to feel shame for your skin, your beliefs, your bloodline. Your entire identity became something to erase. If you were born during this time, you didn't just watch your homeland disappear, you watched your very existence be outlawed. And worst of all, the world barely noticed. Colonial genocide wasn't just mass murder. It was a slow cultural death. Chapter 8, World War I, a generation sent to die in the mud. Picture this. You're an 18-year-old boy in France, Germany, Britain, or Russia in 1914. You've barely become a man. One day, posters go up. The war to end all wars has begun. The world says it's your duty, your honor, to fight. They promise glory. Adventure. A quick war. But the truth is far different. You're given a rusted rifle, a pair of boots, and sent to the Western Front, a hellish maze of muddy trenches, barbed wire, and no man's land. Your life now fits into a trench barely 6 feet wide and filled with water. It rains constantly. The mud climbs to your knees. Your socks rot on your feet. Trench foot blackens your toes, sometimes they fall off. You sleep beside rats feeding on corpses. The air stinks of death. There's no silence, only the constant echo of distant artillery, or the sharp crack of machine guns. Then comes the whistle. You climb over the trench. And you run. Into gunfire, into gas, into a meat grinder. If you're lucky, you die quickly. If you're not, you're wounded, lying in the mud, screaming for hours, no one able to reach you. And this happens every day. For 4 years. By the time it's over, nearly 20 million people are dead. Most of them are young men, a lost generation. Many didn't even know why they were fighting. They just knew that if they didn't go, they'd be called cowards. Traitors. Even those who survived never truly came home. They were shell-shocked, haunted, broken by horrors no one could explain. And for what? Borders barely changed. Peace didn't last. The war left Europe in ruins, setting the stage for something even worse just 20 years later. If you were born between 1890 and 1900, you had a terrifying chance of being called to the trenches. And for millions, that birthdate was a death sentence. Chapter 9, The Holocaust, Born into the Crosshairs of Hate. Tone, solemn, deeply emotional, factual but haunting. Imagine being born in Europe in the 1920s or early 1930s. Maybe you're Jewish. Or Romani. Or disabled. Maybe you're gay. Or just speak the wrong language. Maybe your only crime is having the wrong name. At first, it's small things. You're not allowed in certain schools. Neighbors stop talking to you. Shops say, no Jews allowed. The newspapers call you a threat. Your country's leader, Adolf Hitler, says you're the enemy of the nation. Then it escalates. You're forced to register with the government. You're given a yellow star to wear, marking you for all to see. One day, soldiers come to your house. You're given 10 minutes to pack. They say you're being relocated. You're shoved onto a cattle car, packed shoulder to shoulder with strangers. No food. No water. Just darkness and fear. The train rolls for days. You arrive at Auschwitz, or Treblinka, or Dachau. The air smells like burning. You see chimneys in the distance. Armed guards with dogs. Screaming in languages you don't understand. Some people are told to go left. Others go right. What you don't realize is, that's the last time you'll see your mother. The gas chambers were disguised as showers. People walked in expecting water. They never walked out. Children. Infants. The elderly. Murdered within hours of arrival. Over 6 million Jews were exterminated. Alongside millions of others, Romani people, Poles, Soviet POWs, people with disabilities, LGBTQ individuals. This wasn't just a war crime. It was a calculated, industrial genocide. Every death was documented, organized, approved. If you were born Jewish in the wrong country during this time, you weren't even seen as human. You were seen as a problem to be solved. And yet, even in this hell, there was resistance. Courage. People hiding families in attics. Smuggling children across borders. Whispering prayers as the world fell. Chapter 10, The 20th Century's Forgotten Famines, Starving in a World of Plenty. Tone, somber, eye-opening, emotionally reflective. Imagine being a child, and every day you watch your parents grow thinner. The cupboard is empty. The fields are bare. And every time you ask for food, they just smile, weakly, and say, we're fine. You eat. But there's nothing to eat. Now imagine this isn't just your family. It's your entire village. Your entire country. Millions of people, starving to death, not because of drought, or bad luck, but because their government chose it. Welcome to some of the worst famines of the modern era, and some of the worst times to be born. The Holodomor, Ukraine, 1932 to 1933. The Bengal Famine, India, 1943. The Great Chinese Famine, 1959 to 1961. So, when was the worst time in history to be born? Was it the Black Death, when 1 in 3 people died? Was it the Middle Passage, where Africans were shackled like cargo? Was it 1916, watching your brothers bleed into the trenches? Or was it 1942, when being born Jewish meant you had months to live? The truth is, there is no single answer. But what's clear is this: history wasn't kind to most people. Being born in the wrong place, at the wrong time, to the wrong group, could mean suffering, slavery, or death. So if you're alive today, watching this video, with food to eat, a roof over your head, and access to knowledge, you're living in a moment that millions before us could only dream of. But these stories matter. Because they remind us how far we've come, and how easy it is to fall back.